John Elway struggled in his first year too, and Bobby Musgrave made sure everyone remembered that when talking about Shedeur Sanders. Pointing to the universal growing pains of NFL rookies, Musgrave framed Sanders' early stumbles, like pocket drifting and slow reads, not as red flags, but as milestones.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
The real problem, he suggested, wasn't the mistakes themselves. It was how Kevin Stefanski used them to sideline Sanders instead of teaching through them. Rookie development isn't about instant results. It's about creating space for evolution. And Musgrave made clear that space was denied. Now that Sanders is finally getting meaningful snaps, his growth isn't just noticeable, it's undeniable. His rhythm, timing, and decision-making are sharper with each outing. That's not a product of some overnight coaching revelation. It's a result of resilience and repetition. Musgrave's clear praise for Tommy contrasted sharply with his silence on Stefanski, revealing an internal divide in how this organization approaches quarterback growth. And in that silence, he left a loud warning about what's broken and what must change. So, the quarterback coach just broke ranks. And not with a shout, not with drama, but with precision. When Bobby Musgrave sat down and opened his mouth, the air changed. He didn't need theatrics. He had facts. And those facts were enough to shake up everything about how the Cleveland Browns are handling one of their most valuable assets, rookie quarterback Shedeur Sanders. The words weren't fire and brimstone, but make no mistake, Musgrave torched head coach Kevin Stefanski's approach without ever directly saying his name. And, if you were paying attention, that silence was louder than anything else in the room. Let's be clear, Shedeur Sanders was locked in fourth-string status for most of the season. Fourth string. He might as well have been the water boy. That placement didn't reflect his ability. It reflected a decision, a conscious one, to keep him buried. Based on what? Preseason drills? A few habits that literally every rookie quarterback has? Musgrave wasn't having it. And in one press conference, he reframed the narrative that's been floating around for months. This wasn't a kid who wasn't ready. This wasn't about inexperience or attitude. This was a player being held back by an organizational philosophy that punishes rookies for not being polished out of the box. And that's the real story. Musgrave highlighted something every fan, every player, every coach should know. Quarterbacks don't become great by watching from the sidelines. They develop through repetition, through real game experience, through mistakes and adjustments. That's how it works. It's always worked that way. But instead of recognizing that, Stefanski and the broader Brown staff chose to bench a highly promising talent because he wasn't perfect in August. Musgrave, though, saw what was actually happening behind the scenes. Shedeur was improving, not because the team was helping him grow, because he was doing the work. He was pushing through, grinding, absorbing every rep he could get his hands on. Footwork, rhythm, pocket presence, it all started to click. And none of that was a result of being benched. What's more, Musgrave made a point of crediting offensive coordinator Tommy Ree. According to him, Ree's system and game plans actually gave Shedeur a real shot when the time came. He didn't say anything about Stefanski. Not one compliment. Not a thank you. Not a nod. Just silence. And that silence? That was deliberate. This wasn't about forgetting to mention the head coach. It was a surgical omission. Musgrave went out of his way to highlight the people who did support Shedeur's growth. He just left out the one man who had the most power to give the rookie a real chance, and didn't. That's not just tension. That's a fundamental disconnect. It shows you how fractured the Browns' quarterback development system really is. You got coaches working in silos, with some trying to bring a young talent along, and others actively keeping him off the field. It's not just a difference in opinion. It's a power struggle over the future of this franchise. And what's worse, this could have been avoided. Musgrave broke down exactly how Shedeur responded to adversity. He didn't fold. He learned. He adjusted. Even things like pocket drifting, yes, that issue Stefanski allegedly fixated on during preseason, are common for rookies. Musgrave even referenced John Elway, not as a hype tool, but to make the point that growing pains are normal. Elway struggled. Every great quarterback does early on. But Stefanski? He treated those struggles as reasons to shut the door. That kind of thinking doesn't just stall progress. It kills it. The real kicker? Now that Shedeur has started to get playing time, he's proving them wrong. The throws, the poise, the mobility, the awareness. It's all showing up in real time. And yet, none of this would have happened if certain coaches had their way. So when Musgrave said, "We'll get to the crux of the matters in the off-season," he wasn't talking about casual review meetings. He was talking about a reckoning, a confrontation. Because this isn't just a missed opportunity. It's a symptom of something deeper. The Browns have a problem. And it's not Shedeur. It's the leadership that failed to see what they had. Musgrave's entire press conference was a strategic dismantling of that leadership. He didn't need to name names. The contrast between praise for Ree and the glaring silence on Stefanski said everything. The people helping Shedeur succeed were recognized. The ones holding him back? Exposed. And it's not like Musgrave was defending bad performance. He was defending a normal development curve. He was defending the truth that rookies need support, patience, and actual game reps. And he was calling out an environment where those things were withheld. Even worse, it seems like Stefanski and his crew tried to control the public narrative, painting Shedeur as a guy who wasn't ready, letting the media chew on the idea that he just wasn't showing enough. But Musgrave pushed back hard on that. He made it clear that Shedeur's progress wasn't a recent miracle. It was months in the making, months that could have been accelerated if the coaches had trusted the process instead of hiding behind preseason snapshots. That's the core of Musgrave's message. Trust the process. Don't bury young talent just because they don't fit a mold right away. Because what happened to Shedeur this season wasn't just unfair, it was damaging. To his confidence, to the team's development pipeline, to the culture. And now the Browns are going to have to explain themselves. Because this isn't just about one quarterback. It's about every future rookie who walks into that building wondering if they'll get a real shot or get benched before they even start. Musgrave's press conference has forced the issue. It's not just a coaching disagreement. It's an indictment of how the organization evaluates and develops its most important position. And that's not something you sweep under the rug once the season ends. The Browns need to answer for this. And if they're serious about building around Shedeur Sanders, if they truly believe he's the future, they need to start acting like it. That means putting development over image, reps over reputation, growth over politics. The good news? Shedeur is still here. He's still putting in the work, still proving that he belongs. The bad news? He's doing it in spite of the system, not because of it. Let us know what you think. Was Musgrave right to go public? Should Stefanski be held accountable for slowing Shedeur's development? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button if you're done watching talent get benched for no good reason. And subscribe for more breakdowns as the Browns head into what's shaping up to be one of their most dramatic off-seasons yet. And here's where it gets even more uncomfortable for the Browns. Because this isn't just a story about a promising rookie quarterback. This is a story about control. About who gets to decide what development looks like. About who the organization trusts to shape the future. And right now, the guy being trusted the least seems to be the one showing the most upside. That press conference from Bobby Musgrave wasn't just a defense of Shedeur Sanders. It was a line in the sand. A declaration. You don't come out and highlight a rookie's improvement, credit an offensive coordinator, and then go completely silent on the head coach unless you're making a point. That silence? It was a full-volume critique of Kevin Stefanski's leadership, specifically his role in Shedeur's delay. And this wasn't a case of Musgrave being impulsive or emotional. He knew exactly what he was doing. When a seasoned coach with Musgrave's experience speaks, every word is measured. Every omission is intentional. And in this case, what he didn't say said more than anything else. There's an unspoken rule in the NFL. You keep internal disagreements internal. You don't blast your head coach in public unless it's too late for behind-the-scenes diplomacy. So the fact that Musgrave felt the need to go public, that tells you everything. This wasn't an isolated disagreement. It's been bubbling under the surface for months. Let's go back to where it all started. The Browns' decision to slot Shedeur Sanders at fourth string. Fourth. As if he was just there to run scout team plays and hold a clipboard. That's not development, that's dismissal. And it wasn't based on who gave them the best chance to win. It was based on a misread. A coaching staff that made an early decision and then doubled down on it, no matter what the tape or the reps showed later. And Musgrave? He's had enough. You could hear it in every word. The frustration, the exhaustion, the need to finally say something, because clearly the people with the power to make better decisions weren't going to do it on their own. And what makes it even worse is the way the organization spun it. The whole narrative that Shedeur just wasn't ready, that his habits were too raw, that was damage control. That was the team protecting itself by shifting the blame onto a rookie who, by all accounts, was doing everything right, just not getting the opportunity to show it. That's why Musgrave brought up Shedeur's work ethic, his growth, his constant improvement, because he wanted to make it clear, this isn't a kid who needed to be coddled. This is a kid who needed to be developed. But instead of helping him grow, the coaching staff shoved him aside and told the public he just wasn't there yet. Musgrave wasn't having it. And to back it up, he referenced names that carry weight, like John Elway, not as a lazy comparison, but to make the point that even the greats had rookie flaws. That pocket drifting, hesitation, and slow processing are not signs of a bust. They're signs of a beginning. But in Cleveland, those signs were used as justification for a benching. It's backwards. And Musgrave said as much without needing to say it directly. He pointed out what any experienced coach knows. Quarterbacks learn by playing. That's how timing improves. That's how instincts sharpen. That's how you evolve from potential to performance. But Stefanski's approach treated Shedeur like he had to be perfect before he could play. Let's be honest, that's not how this works. That's not how it's ever worked. Especially not for someone with the raw talent Shedeur has. So now we're left with a troubling reality. The Browns, once again, mishandled a quarterback situation. They didn't just misjudge a player. They suppressed his growth based on outdated logic. And the worst part? It was avoidable. That's the core of Musgrave's frustration. Shedeur could have been much further along. He could have had more confidence, more in-game awareness, more chemistry with the offense. But instead, he was left on the shelf, while the team floundered, looking for answers that were literally standing right in front of them. And if you're Shedeur, how do you not feel some type of way? Because this is the NFL. There are no guaranteed careers. Every snap matters. Every opportunity counts. And to lose half a season because the people above you couldn't see the bigger picture, that's not just frustrating, it's infuriating. Now, of course, the Browns will try to smooth this over. There will be statements about team unity and development plans. They'll downplay the tension and talk about moving forward. But the message from Musgrave is out there. And it's not going back in the bottle. Because now the world knows there is division in the building. The quarterback coach and the head coach aren't aligned. One sees a future franchise star who needs time and support. The other saw a project who needed to wait his turn. And the tape? The tape sides with Musgrave. Every time Shedeur steps on the field and delivers, he makes the staff that doubted him look worse. Every tight window throw, every smart check down, every extended play, it all points to a player who should have been getting reps months ago. This is where the real consequences start. Because Musgrave didn't just defend Shedeur. He exposed a deeper issue, how the Browns handle talent development. And that's something that can't be brushed off. Not when you've got a player this promising. Not when your coaching staff can't even agree on what progress looks like. And heading into the offseason? That quote, "We'll get to the crux of the matters," that's a warning. That means meetings are coming, reviews, evaluations, tough conversations. And someone's going to be asked, why didn't you play him sooner? If the Browns want to get this right, they need to start listening to the people who are actually developing the players. Not just the ones making the depth charts. Musgrave and Ree are clearly doing the work. They're the ones in the trenches. And the contrast between how they're supporting Shedeur and how Stefanski ignored him speaks volumes. The Browns have a choice now. They can admit they got it wrong and restructure the way they handle quarterback development. Or they can double down on the same approach that almost wasted a season of growth for a player with franchise potential. Because make no mistake, Shedeur is that guy. He's proving it day by day. And with the right support, he could be a foundational piece for years to come. But if they keep pushing him aside, making him earn every inch while others get handed opportunities, that's a recipe for losing not just a player, but the locker room's trust and the fan base's patience. So what's next? That depends on whether the Browns are ready to have the hard conversations Musgrave just opened the door to. Because the crux of the matter isn't just about one player. It's about how an organization recognizes, nurtures, and respects talent. And if they can't get that right, then it doesn't matter who's under center, because the system will fail them. And now, here we are, facing a moment the Browns have been avoiding all season. The truth is out. Bobby Musgrave didn't just lift the curtain. He yanked it down in one press conference. The quarterback coach stood in front of reporters and calmly blew a hole through the narrative that's been carefully crafted around Shedeur Sanders. He didn't scream. He didn't plead. He just told the truth. And that truth is damning. Shedeur didn't get a fair chance, and it had nothing to do with talent. Let's not water it down. This wasn't just a comment or a stray soundbite. This was a clear, calculated statement made by someone who's been watching the dysfunction from the inside. Musgrave didn't just defend Shedeur's progress. He laid bare the systemic failure that delayed it. He exposed the philosophy that kept a rising quarterback buried for most of the year. And he made it very clear that when the season ends, the Browns will have some explaining to do. What Musgrave said, especially his decision to only praise Tommy Rhee, wasn't subtle. It was a direct shot across the bow. By highlighting Rhee's positive impact and refusing to even mention Kevin Stefanski, he made one thing obvious. The head coach was part of the problem. And that kind of public rift? It's a massive deal in the NFL. Because if there's one thing that will fracture a locker room fast, it's mixed messaging from the coaching staff. When one coach says, "This kid is the future," and the other acts like he's an afterthought, that disconnect doesn't stay quiet. It spills over. Players talk. Coaches choose sides. Trust erodes. And when the players see a guy like Shedeur, who's showing real promise, get sidelined based on preseason optics and politics, it sends a message no team wants circulating. Talent isn't enough. That's what's so dangerous here. Not just the missed opportunity, but the culture it creates. If you're a young player watching this unfold, what are you supposed to think? That hard work doesn't matter? That even if you improve, it won't be enough to earn a shot? That once the head coach makes up his mind, that's it? That's not a development model. That's a bottleneck. And for a team like the Browns, who have spent the better part of 2 decades trying to find a stable quarterback, this kind of dysfunction is not just frustrating. It's self-sabotage. Let's revisit the most infuriating part. Shedeur didn't just suddenly get better. He's been grinding. He's been learning. The raw traits were always there: arm strength, mobility, field vision. What he needed was experience. Representatives, real-time learning. And instead of giving him those, the Browns stuck him at the bottom of the depth chart and acted like he needed to be some fully formed product before he could step on the field. And Musgrave called that out directly. He pointed out that Shedeur's growth didn't come from some magical coaching turnaround. It came from his own work ethic, from digging in, from doing the extra work, from pushing forward despite being benched and overlooked. That's not just perseverance, that's franchise quarterback mentality. And the fact that the organization couldn't, or wouldn't, see that until Musgrave practically forced the issue, that should be a wake-up call. Because now they're at a crossroads. The season is winding down. The internal tension is out in the open. The media is catching on. And the fans? They've seen this story too many times before. A promising quarterback stifled by mismanagement. A coaching staff too rigid or too proud to adjust. And now it's happening again. Only this time, it's different. Because someone on the inside spoke up. That's what makes this so critical. Musgrave didn't have to say any of this publicly. Most position coaches stay quiet, play their role, and let the head coach take the spotlight. But this time, he spoke. Because the stakes were too high to stay silent, and in doing so, he gave Shedeur the support the front office wouldn't. And let's be clear, Musgrave wasn't just defending a player. He was making a statement about how winning teams operate. They invest in their rookies. They allow room for mistakes. They recognize potential early and nurture it. They don't bury talent and hope it magically resurfaces mid-season. That's why this off-season matters so much. The Browns can't brush this under the rug. They can't chalk it up to a developmental timeline or quarterback competition. Not after this. Not after Musgrave's very public, very intentional message. Because now, the front office has to make a decision. When do they stick with the approach that kept Shedeur hidden behind the scenes? Or do they reevaluate everything? Who's making the decisions, how those decisions are made, and whether the people in charge are actually helping this team grow? And if they don't? If they try to ignore what Musgrave laid out, then they'll be setting themselves up for a long, ugly off-season full of hard questions and fractured trust. Because the fans saw what happened. The players saw it. And now, thanks to Musgrave, it's officially on the record. Let's be real. Shedeur Sanders isn't just a quarterback. He's a test. A symbol of whether this franchise has actually learned from its history, or whether it's doomed to repeat the same mistakes in a new jersey. So what now? That's the question every Browns fan should be asking. What happens next? Does the team finally start acting like they want to build something sustainable around a young quarterback? Or do they keep falling into the same patterns of short-term thinking, misjudged potential, and internal power struggles? Time's up on hoping it'll fix itself. The divide is real. The receipts are public. And the people who actually see Shedeur day in and day out are the ones calling out the system, not defending it. So yeah, the next few months are going to be loud. Because Bobby Musgrave made sure this isn't just a footnote, it's the headline. Let us know how you're feeling about this mess. Was Musgrave right to go public, or did he just light a fire under an already unstable situation? Do you think Shedeur should have been starting earlier? Who do you hold accountable here? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button if you're exhausted watching young talent get wasted. And subscribe so you're the first to know when Cleveland's quarterback saga takes its inevitable next turn.